Thank you very much, everyone, for finding time to come for this briefing. First of all, I want to apologize that our office is not as spacious and we could not accommodate everyone. Some of us are actually outside, so I want to apologize for that. We were trying to get a hall within the building, but there are many other functions ongoing. So I want to apologize for that, and also the time that you have lost trying to arrange because of space kuwa kidogo. I first of all again want to also thank you everyone for coming. And on the onset, I want to take this very first opportunity to apologize to Kenyans for the disappointment I caused them last week during the finance bill vote on Thursday of last week. It is not the way I do things. Nilikosea hapo. It was not abdicating the duty. I've been trying to do as much as possible when it comes to governance in this country, and also especially anything to do with public finances. So whatever happened, I apologize to Kenyans, and we have learned from it to do better and to be better representatives of the people. And if you allow me, because I have been able to look at the feedback from Kenyans, and I felt it is very critical and important that we address this matter the way it is, bila sugarcoating. Allow me to give just a brief chronology of what happened around the finance bill debate, including the vote, but also in terms of the budget making process. Those processes, we started the debates majorly in the month of June. That is both the appropriations and also the finance bill. And I did my bit in terms of also having written proposals to both committees, that is the budget and appropriations, and also the finance committee. And I am glad and I'm thankful that I was able to appear before both committees to give my proposals. Unfortunately, as you know, not many of them were carried. So what happened in terms of the debate within the House is that I've been there all the days in terms of the appropriations, either tonight a budget, but also in terms of the finance bill, the debate, and also up to the second reading. So when we started the debate, that is last week, of the finance bill, I was there consistently from day one, together with several of my colleagues. And I was present during the second reading, which happened on Wednesday. And as you are all aware, even the people who are here, my brothers and sisters, who cover us in Parliament, as you are all aware, even the previous bills, the votes that has been very consequential is the second reading. And I was actually there up to the debate, and also defending the many who are speaking our language, who are looking also bulldozed in Parliament. And I was able to stand up and also defend them. Now, what happened is that after the conclusion of the second reading on Wednesday, the mover was called upon to reply as it happens. And that is when we actually do the vote of this, after this, the debate of the second reading. And as it happened, the speaker actually then proposed, and we voted by acclamation. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we were not hatukutosheka watu ambao tulikuwa na maoni tofauti, and we saw it wise that we stand up in what is called division. We were 27 of us in the House that day on Wednesday, and as you know, in terms of parliamentary rules, if you are not that and above, then you are not called for division. Division is what gives us an opportunity to vote singularly, a person per person, in terms of a single individual vote. So after we were then 27 and the debate was concluded, it was almost obvious where the direction was headed. But I also want to say that I apologize. We could have waited up to the end, even of the third reading, and therefore no amount of explanation, even the one I'm giving, should absolve me of the blame that I ought to have done better, and I wish that I'll be a better representative of the people of Kenya, and especially also through the lesson learned in this whole process. The second thing is that I want to also thank Kenyans, because I have been very outspoken on many of these finance issues, public finance issues. And maybe the reason Kenyans felt more disappointed with myself, because I was the most outspoken in terms of also giving this information to Kenyans in all platforms, including this office, the many press conferences, and also in most of the forums that I go. I have been speaking about these issues, both the ones that are contained in the budget, but also the ones that are contained in the finance bill. But the reason I was starting that statement is to thank Kenyans, because even whatever we do in Parliament and whatever length we go, we are also able to achieve a lot also out here. Because as a member of Parliament, as a leader, I should use all the platforms available for us to have the best idea take over in terms of the running of the affairs of our economy in Kenya. And to single just a few, which I'm very proud of, is that, as you remember, in the month of December, there was an imminent increment of school fees for our day secondary schools. The principals had already received circulars, but I was able, together with many other Kenyans, to start up, and that issue was shelved. And I'm very proud about the bravity and also the courage of Kenyans on that issue. As you also know, I've been on this issue of Safaricom sale. And I want to start by saying that I attended the committee that was handling that issue. I actually gave more than 30 proposals on the sale of Safaricom, because I wanted Kenyans to receive the best value for money for our assets. As you all know, the issue came to Parliament, and because, as you are aware, without hiding our faces in the sand, about the nature of Parliament as it is, the issue passed. There were actually just a few of us in Parliament debating and giving contrary views on that issue. It passed, and after passing, I am glad that many other Kenyans took up the same points that we have given and went to the judiciary, and the judiciary temporarily halted. But I'm disappointed that even after giving so many glaring areas that we could have corrected, that our judiciary actually gave us ropers yesterday on the same. But we had done our bit, and I also thank the other Kenyans who took the same issues that we were raising in the National Assembly to pursue it in the judiciary. Many issues we've been talking about, I also cite about debt. We've been very outspoken about debt, because one of the single issues that our country faces is the issue of the national debt. And it will come to bite us soon if we do not rectify our trend, and especially of borrowing. And I am glad that other institutions, including the IMF and the World Bank, have taken up our voices, amplified them, and they are telling the government that we cannot continue to borrow, and especially outside the book, what is called off the book borrowing. And I'm very glad that even in the recent Washington meetings, called spring meetings in Washington, the Bretton Woods institutions amplified the same voice, and the government was put into order that they have to include every borrowing into one book. The same thing we've been speaking, because if we do it now and we don't correct, it will come to hurt us later in the future. However, I also want to face some issues head on some of the feedback that I've received from Kenyans. And I want to start by saying, as you all know, it has been a very bitter pill for me to swallow for the last 1 week. But most of the bitter pills, many times, they also give us reprieve, and they make us learn and become better. And I want to appreciate all Kenyans for all the overwhelming feedback. One of the issues that I saw raised was about previous absence in matters that touches on or matters that are important to our country. And I want to say that, to my recollection, in terms of all the finance bill debates and votes, and I'm not trying to prove anyone wrong, I have been participating in all the debates and votes, including the year 2025, the debate about finance bill. The other issue that has been raised is the issue of impeachment. And I have seen, of course, that being attached to what is currently on the table. And I also want to give my view on that. And I would want to request anyone to tell me whether they have actually ever heard the second deputy president complaining about that impeachment vote. And the reason you don't hear is because, as you all know, and majority of you in front of me have covered other impeachments, including for governors, any vote that requires a two-thirds majority, you do not win it by voting. You win it by denying the two-thirds majority in the House. That is what you have seen all the governors do. If you have 30 MCAs, you make sure they do not turn up, and the agenda collapses. And the reason they do that, and has been happening, is that there is still a huge possibility that a person who actually came to save you will be bought along the way, as it happened even in this particular case. So whatever I have done and tried to do it in all good faith, because there is actually nothing to hide about that, but I thought it is important that I address it at this particular time. As I go to the close, and I will say a few things in Swahili. Yesterday, I got a call from one of my friends. It's called Councillor Johi. And I have received also many concerns from my friend Abdi, my friend Ajiki, my friend Danstan from Nambale, and many other Kenyans, as I've seen their feedback on the social media. And what Councillor Johi told me is, Jana, and I'll put it in Swahili, hiyo mambo umeitana kesho, hata kama unatuambia mambo ya finance bill, hiyo ni sawa, lakini pia tunataka utueleze mambo yako ya kisiasa. And I have seen that feedback, overwhelming feedback from Kenyans. And I want to appreciate that there are many Kenyans who would want to hear our view on that. And on the same call, before I address the main issue, another person, or actually not that one, another person called me. I've been having many conversations with Kenyans. One Kenyan concerned told me, you need to clear some of these things that are being done by, of course, in the political space. Because when you are vulnerable, the way I have been vulnerable for the last 1 week, even the political competitors, of course, they get a field day, and they want to maximize on it. So one of them told me, hey, you heard what Junet said? Then I asked him, what did he say? He said something in effect, then I went and checked, maybe you have seen. Then I asked the same person, did you believe Junet? The person told me no. Then I told him that question has been answered, that it is not important for me to respond to such an issue where even Kenyans themselves, they know some of the people raising them, they do not trust them by themselves because of how they have handled other matters before. And therefore, happily, I'll go to the other points without belaboring that one, because it's obvious, and I think you all know that when you are vulnerable, watu watachukua hiyo nafasi pia kukulima kisiasa. And I don't blame them because makosa ni yangu. The things I've been saying, to put it very plainly, especially matters to do with the economy and the running of the economy. There is no way you can do those things when you are supporting the government. It is obvious. Because if you are doing that, then you just give them your views. So I hope now with clarity is that I keep on giving alternative voices even in public and parliament. Because as Kenyans are very quite aware, we no longer support the government of the day and how it runs the affairs of the economy. But of course, people would want more, like some of the calls I've been having. And there is a person I asked this question. Between the issues that we've been handling that are very weighty, for example, the ones that I have cited, I have been thinking it is also important for us to have people who are soberly looking at such issues that are far-reaching to the welfare of our country, Kenya. The second thing is that, and I'm addressing this issue of many people and Kenyans on social media and also calls, WhatsApp conversations, people are telling me, sasa lazima utuambie msimamo wako wa kisiasa. Yes. I have stated one categorically, which I'm sure you are all aware even before you came here, that there is no way I can speak the same things I speak about if I am still in government. But I also want to repeat, I cannot also blame anyone who would want me to keep on explaining the same matter, and especially the people in the political space, because they are doing their job as politicians to keep you on toes. Now, the biggest conversation is, which I've had in terms of feedback, then tell us, where are you? And I want to say this with a lot of humility. I was part of the team that campaigned around the country in the year 2022. And most of the times when I try to give alternative views and to criticize, the message that always comes to me loudly is, but you are part of these people. It is you who came to convince us. And out of that learning, probably, it has made me to be more cautious and reflective. I have taken a lot of time to look at the political scenario in the country. And I'm still taking that time, because I would request and plead with Kenyans to understand my perspective. That the single most important decision that we are going to make as a country is that decision about how do we want our country to proceed. And how we want our country to proceed is bound up together with who are these individuals who will come together and do this job. And that is what the question have to answer most of the time, maybe inconclusively. The reason I am taking time and I have taken time is because for me, this decision is not about my political convenience. It is about what Kenya will become. If I'm to be selfish and inward looking, I live in Kenya. I know what I need to say, and I become a sensation politically immediately. We have been on that path before. If I want to engage in a popularity contest, I know exactly what I need to say even today. But the question I want to ask ourselves as Kenyans, after that, where do we live Kenyans? And I have been working on something for the last many months. Something around that question. Objectively, in terms of the kind of Kenya we would want to have. Because it is the kind of Kenya that we would want to have that then would dictate what kind of team do we need to do this job. So I want to plead with Kenyans so that I am not pushed in the situation of the moment as the storm has been ravaging on me. It is too weighty a decision to make, and especially when there is a storm. Not that I don't know what we need to do and who we need to work with, but in terms of the deliverables to the people of Kenya. And I would request, so that I do not get into the same ditch I've been into, where I speak and I'm reminded that I was part of a certain team back then. I request Kenyans to give me 3 to 4 weeks to share my views, specific views, on that issue of political formations and the things that we need to do in terms of our Republic of Kenya going forward. I know that is overwhelming because everyone would want me to call the press and just say one thing or the other. But I am convinced, because I have experience of having been on the same path before, I am convinced with time that Kenyans that are giving us these patience will vindicate us and will be vindicated. That the kind of decision that we must make must be far-reaching in terms of what our country needs and where we need to go, and then we try to see who are these people who would come together to do that job. And in the intervening period, I'll still continue to do my job. Pahali serikali inakosea, nitaendelea kufanya hiyo mambo ya kuongea in good faith, because some of these issues to me are very important than me appearing in a rally. Appearing in a rally is important, that is fine, but I feel there are things that I need also as a leader to be sure of, to put in place, to agree with Kenyans, so that we also can be able to be very elaborate on that matter. As I come to the conclusion, niseme kidogo kwa Kiswahili baadaye. Kwa bahati ni kwamba viongozi wengi Kenya, hata wale wako katika opposition, and especially those ones are my friends. I talk to almost all of them. Basically, almost all of them. And the majority of them are my friends. But I'm also convinced that the decision that I should take must never be based on friendship to this person or the next. Must be a decision that I can be able to defend for many more years to come. I do not want to be in a situation where a government is formed and in the December of 2027, Kenyans are dissatisfied as we did the previous time. And that is why I still plead. I need time, as I've stated, 3 to 4 weeks. I share my opinions and I share my thoughts with Kenyans, and I know they are reasonable. Something I've been working on for a very long time, and I know Kenyans will appreciate that my silence has not been in vain. It has been for Kenyans, not for my political convenience. Nikisema machache kwa Kiswahili, kwa sababu ni vizuri pia tunajikakamua kutumia lugha ya taifa. Na najua pia hapa kuna watu ambao wanajua Kiswahili kuniliko, mtanikosoa na mniruhusu nichanganye kidogo kwa Kiingereza kiasi. Nataka nitumie fursa hii ya kwanza kutoa msamaha kwa Wakenya kwa disappointment ambayo nilisababisha wakati tulikuwa tunapiga kura ya finance bill pale bungeni last week. Ni vizuri niseme vizuri na kinagaubaga ya kwamba haikuwa nia yangu ya kukwepa wajibu wangu kama mbunge wa Kiharu na mbunge wa National Assembly. Na vile nimeeleza hapo awali, nimekuwa bungeni katika hizo jambo zote tulifanya za mswada wa fedha, na katika mchakato wote nimekuwa pale bungeni mpaka ile tunaita second reading. Na hapo second reading tukapiga kura na tukaitisha ile inaitwa mgawanyo ama division. Kwa bahati mbaya tukakuwa watu 27 wabunge pale ambao walikuwa na maoni tofauti na yale ya serikali. Na vile mnajua ni kwamba kuita mgawanyo inahitaji kura 30. Na kwa hivyo tukapiga kura na ile inaitwa acclamation na ikaenda vile ilienda. Hiyo jioni nilikuwa nasafiri na nikasafiri na nilirudi actually the day before yesterday jioni, na pia ilikuwa safari ilikuwa ya kiumuhimu. Lakini si vizuri niendelee na kuexplain makosa ambayo ishafanyika. Ni vizuri kwanza niegemee hapo kwa msamaha zaidi. Na niseme nimepokea ujumbe, an overwhelming feedback from the Kenyan people. Na katika maoni ya Wakenya nimeona mambo kadhaa. Na nitaongea tu machache kwa sababu ni vizuri ni clarify. Nikapata moja, Wakenya wananiuliza, wakati kumekuwa na kura kama hizi, kuna wakati mwingine umekuwa hauko bungeni. Kuongea ukweli ni kwamba katika mswada wote wa fedha ambayo imekuwa hapo awali, hata nikiweka ile ya last year ya 2025, mimi nimekuwa bungeni na nikapeana maonio yangu na nikapiga kura pale bungeni including 2025. Ya pili, nikaulizwa na Wakenya katika mtandao na pia katika simu, nikaulizwa na ile kura ya impeachment, nayo tunakumbuka pia. Na mkiangalia mtaona ya kwamba naibu wa rais Mheshimiwa Rigathi Gachagua hamujasikia pahali popote akilalamika. Ni kwa sababu hata yeye kama mwanasiasa mkongwe anajua kura ambayo iko kama hii inahitaji ile tunaita 2/3 majority. Hii kura hata ukiangalia zile zimeanguka katika Kenya, hata kwa counties, hazianguki kwa zile kura zimepigwa.